welcome to a special edition of the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm Special Edition Spook.
We're going to be looking at the Collingwood culture, the season that was, and a list review.
This could take days, so wear something comfortable.
And have a beer.
Or 10.
Yeah. Spook.
Yes.
I wrote a piece for the Raw a few weeks ago.
Yes, I read that. It was very good.
Oh, thank you. It was
Except for the bits that weren't.
It was about the hype that surrounds the Collingwood Football Club.
Hype?
Yes, the hype.
That's hard to believe.
And on that bastion of great footy insight, do you know who I'm talking about?
The Raw?
No, Channel 7. No, actually, Big Footy. I got pilloried for criticising the club.
On Big Footy?
On Big Footy.
That sounds inconceivable.
It sounds big, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think support of a football club should be unconditional?
Yes, I do. No, I don't. I'm making that up. No, I think there has to be understanding at times, and there has to be condemnation for the rest of it.
Well, I mean, my complaint with the unconditional love is that means you never hold your football club accountable.
No, that's one thing I can't do. I can't have unconditional love for this club.
Well, unconditional, but you can't have unconditional love in any facet of life.
No, apparently you can as a Collingwood supporter.
Well, I mean, even in relationships, if you had unconditional love, it means you'd never break up with anyone because you just accept everything they do, and it's fine because you have no criticisms, no complaints,
But
no self-respect either.
But you've been saying this for years. There is two clear factions of supporters out there. There's those that just sit there and attack anyone who criticises or passes judgment or just go out and love the club, clap the boys off. I love the football club. It's everything to me. I don't get up for any other reason than Collingwood, blah, blah, blah. These people just will completely turn a blind eye to what's obviously staring at them in the face. And then there's the other half that do try and hold the club accountable, or will question at times why things aren't working in a particular way. And look, you can't have everyone comfortably sitting in the middle, but nor can you have such diverse factions as we seem to have.
But I think the problem is the other half, the half that can be critical, is also then split into two halves. So you get people who try to be constructively critical, like ourselves, various websites which have existed in the past, like Buckley Surfers, Extreme Black and White, Nick's Collingwood page, and then you get the other half, which are just fanatical and just understudies to madness. And they will criticise the club regardless of what's happening. They will always find there is a complaint, and those people actually dilute genuine criticism, because you just get these fanatics who are insane. Sorry, but it doesn't matter what happens. There's always some case, and they'll do things like, and I'll give you a really good example. Going into 2010, there were people openly critical of Malthouse, and then after we won the flag, these same people were saying, "Oh no, I never criticised Malthouse. I never did it."
I think in the age of the internet, that's the thing, isn't it? The internet.
Send it to the internet.
You certainly have that element, but I reckon there's also a professional element out there that are just purely trolling.
Oh yeah,
and they may even not belong to this club in a.
But they remain fanatical in that regard anyway.
Well,
their representation. If you only just take it at face value that these people are fanatical and those people are trying to be constructive, those people, regardless of their motivation, are actually hurting the cause of these people.
That's true.
Following the preliminary final loss, Nathan Buckley impulsively said the season was a failure. Or was a waste. It wasn't a failure. It was a waste. Like, there's a difference. At the Copeland, he took those words back and he said he's said them in the heat of the moment.
No, he talked a lot about Ad Astra.
Yes, he did. And I saw that movie. You're a little bit off. Do you think 2019 was a waste?
Yep.
Any positives out of 2019?
Ongoing development. If you had to take a positive, you have to say every year is about taking games into kids that need them and having them improve.
Now, the one problem with that, because people talk about that, the counterbalance is you're getting games into Jaden Stevenson. You got games in the Darcy Moore and Elliott, You got a few into Scharenberg, so that helps the development. Maynard, Crisp, all those sort of guys. But on the flip side, guys like Pendles and that are getting a game closer to their ultimate
penultimate game.
Yeah, and guys like Jeremy Howe and Jordan Roughhead. Which Roughhead do we have? Jared Roughhead. Keep mixing them up. Roughhead.
Just call him Ruffy.
Yeah. They're sort of 28, 29-year-olds. And this is the point I make with guys of this age, particularly at Collingwood, is you just don't know when the drop-off point's coming. They could play another 5-6 years. They might just...
start breaking.
Yeah. Which is common. You look at Buckley, he won a Brownlow medal in 2003, and that was pretty much his final full season. Although he played 4 more years, 204, 205, well, a lot of hamstring injuries. 206 he played most of the year. 207 he missed pretty much the whole year with hamstring injuries. So you just don't know what's going to happen. The body's just going to go bang.
Yep.
So I think the bigger issue is while you're getting games into these young guys, the games you want to also pump into players are the players like Nathan Murphy, Will Kelly, Isaac Quaynor, Tyler Brown.
Yep.
And these guys played how much?
None.
Or Quaynor played like 2.
Oh, yeah. Then he got boils.
Yeah. He played about 2 games. So there's other guys that you didn't expect them to... or maybe Nathan Murphy might have expected him to play a lot more of the year.
Yep.
Because he got a taste of it last year. Guys like Brown and Kelly, you would have wanted to have like a game or 2 here or there just to get a taste of it. And Quaynor showed that when he played, he didn't entirely look like he didn't fit in immediately. So you would have hoped that he could just play the year out and got, 10, 12 games under his belt. But that didn't happen. So that's actually a waste. So one of the problems I see is as we're getting more experience into that group, there's not enough experience going into that group, and then you get this chasm opening, which means we don't have the young guys coming in to replace the old once that is required.
I mean, the problem with half those kids too is that they didn't even get games in the VFL because of the injuries. Probably Tyler Brown, I think, would have played the most VFL games, but you really got to wonder about what that's doing for development playing. I mean, it's his 2 years now. He's been solely a VFL player. At what point, and it's premature to call that, but at what point do you say it's not going to happen?
We'll look at that a bit more later in terms of the list management. But
it's hard to know until you actually get them into that deep end.
But the problem is we're not being able to do that. Compare that to following the 2006 first semi-final loss to Bulldogs. I really thought that was it for that squad. We're going to have a period of missing the finals. You had guys like Buckley, Lucuria, Burns, Presty, Wakeland, Clement, Rocker, all either nearly on the way out or would be on the way out within a couple of years. But through some really good recruiting, they brought in all these other guys and we pumped games into them. So we actually didn't miss the finals. From 06 onwards, 07 we played a prelim, 208, played qualifying final, 209 prelim, 210 a flag. So the succession was smooth because they were able to get players in there, pump games into them, and they were able to stand up. Nathan Brown's a really good example. And Presty was injured in 2010. Brown just fits seamlessly into that side, and that's just not happening at the moment. No. And that's really frustrating. Mm-hmm. What about tactically?
In what respect?
One of the issues I thought this year was, if you look at last year going into the second half of the year, particularly the last quarter of the year, we just continued to improve and really form this cohesive unit. I don't think we ever looked like we played a full game of football this year.
No.
And after about the first 6 weeks, we just meandered our way until we were really struggling. And we were struggling to beat teams like Bulldogs and St Kilda. And we lost the Fremantle at the MCG. And we got smashed by North. And it was like, hang on, we're not actually seeing any cohesion happening within this unit.
I was going to say, the cohesiveness of the structure was probably lacking throughout the bulk of the year. At times when it looked like you're about to consolidate what you consider to be a good side, someone to drop off through injury. It's no different than the last 58 years. So it's hard to get that sort of... What your idea must be as a coach of your ideal side keeps changing each week because of circumstance. And that just seemed to be the common theme that stopped us from being consistently... it's amazing that we won as many games as we did, but we didn't... you mentioned about we didn't have consistent quarters or consistent games before. I was only half paying attention.
I don't know. I don't pay attention to myself.
But I can't think of too many games where we played 4 quarters.
No.
Throughout the
I don't think we played
season.
any. Maybe the Richmond game, the first time was the only one, although that first half were really wasteful and the second half were dominant. But that was the only game. Games where we won comfortably, like against Port and Brisbane. There was a quarter where each side came back at us, and we had to fight to get back on top. It really was disappointing because I kept waiting for them to click and go into gear, and I thought once we hit that gear, and I was actually happy for a little while, just thinking, okay, you don't want to click in June. It's got to happen late August, and then you run into the finals hot. And the last month, it was that you didn't know which was happening. Were we playing well, or were we playing well because we were playing...
Pacing ourselves.
No, because we were playing sides like 18th place Suns, 17th place Melbourne, Adelaide, who's fallen apart, and Essendon, who rested half their side for that final game. And it was either like a really good lead-in where we were playing inferior opposition and able to pace ourselves and build up some momentum, or we were flattering ourselves playing weak opposition. And it looks like we were flattering ourselves playing weak opposition.
Most weeks of the rant, we were sort of hedging our bets that we were getting ready for that finals run. And when we hit finals, I think the most disappointing thing, and it gets back to the failure comment earlier, is that we pretty much just repeated our form throughout the season.
Yeah.
We I think across the 2 finals we probably played about 2 1/4 quarters of good football. The rest of it was just flat shit.
Well, the Geelong game only played like about a quarter and a half in the first half. And
1 quarter at the end of the GWS game.
Yeah, and that was horrible. And... it really, to me, looked like sort of, well, what'd you get out of that year? I know people are going to say, well, you got to play pump another season into these players and develop some synergy.
We almost got to a grand final by a kick.
Yeah. I really sympathise with Buckley's initial reaction. It feels like a waste. It doesn't feel like you ever find your best shot throughout the season. There might have been certain circumstances for that, but it really felt like these guys just couldn't click in the gear, and there was a greater underlying problem which they weren't able to identify.
Mm-hmm. No, I'd agree with that. Something just didn't smell right.
No.
Because if you were looking at the year prior and you're thinking if this year was about atonement, I don't know what they were trying to atone because there was no evidence of that there. They talked a little bit about the media, about the pain of losing the grand final and stuff. Like that's a unique scenario at Collingwood. There's a club there of about 18,000 people that can talk about that. But there was just nothing that on the field really showed apart from glimpses that they were there to atone for the previous year. And I think the whole year, looking back at it today, is it does feel like a failed year and it feels like a waste of time. I think Buxley chose his words well, I think, after that press conference. Because I think emotionally that's probably... it just sums up perfectly how he's feeling at the time. I don't think that's any different to the rest of us. And I don't think that with the passage of time, you can go back and you can pick at moments and say this was good or this element was good. But ultimately, we failed this year, and
we failed.
That feeling doesn't change now where we are in the middle of October.
Well, I remember you brought up a really good point.
You got a good memory then.
Yeah, I don't know when it was. I think it was about a quarter into the season.
1972.
No, it was this season. But at some point, like middle of the season or something, you said, judging these guys by where they were last year, the only guy who's really improved is Grundy. And the rest have just gone sideways. Tagoe had that explosiveness, but was sporadic. Stevenson was tracking well, but took himself out of it. Roughhead was great, but he wasn't there last year. Yep. So, which of the players from last year really improved their form? And maybe Maynard, to an extent, was one. I thought Chris was up and down. I was actually surprised he was a lot more highly rated than the 940 season was. I thought sometimes he was great, but sometimes he really butchered it. Guys like Treloar and that were not anywhere near as good as
numbers were up, but impact was just mediocre.
And I shouldn't be singling guys out because I just
had keep going.
Yeah, no, because the bulk of my thought didn't really improve, and the problem was they probably actually even some of them declined a little in their output. For Jeremy Howe was terrible for the home and away season. It was
great in the finals.
It was amazing. It was like two of the best finals games I've ever seen. He got like 28 possessions in both, which is an amazing.
Maybe he was out for atonement.
Well, I don't know, but it just really feels like you want to be tracking upwards, and obviously you're going to have things like injury and form, and just there'll be issues that come up. but a large majority of that playing list, I shouldn't say that playing list because a lot of that playing list never gets to play, but a large portion of that side didn't actually build on where their careers were in 2018.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Right. So, Spook, to our favourite topic.
Would this be grand final losses?
Yes. Okay, so just going to reel off a few stats.
All right, Smoke, have you got them?
So, Collingwood was founded in 1892.
Did we lose that?
No, we're just founded.
No.
We won our first flag 10 years later in 1902. All right. We lost out. Typically, the first grand final we played, we lost in 1901. We won in 1902.
Signs are ominous.
Yeah. Up to 1936. So that's in 35 years of football. We were sitting on a record of 11 flags and 9 losses. Okay, so that's in 35 years they've accomplished that.
How's the rest of it look?
Up to 1958, we were sitting on 13 flags and 15 losses. So already we've only won 2 more and we've lost 6.
There's a pattern forming from here, I imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine too. Then going up to 1990 when we won our drought-breaking premiership, we now sat on 14 wins, 23 losses. So
it's like a snowball.
And we had a draw. So we had 8 more losses and we won 1 and we drew 1. And then going to where we are now, incorporating or inclusive of 2010, we're sitting on 15 grand final or 15 flags, 27 runners up and 2 draws. So if you just break it down from going to 1936, 11 flags, 9 losses, and since then we've won 4 flags and 18 losses.
What a
and
club.
2 draws.
What a club.
What is it that makes us lose grand finals?
Not being in front at the end.
And what contributes to that?
I have multiple theories on this, and the prominent one for me, and we've talked a little bit about it off camera, is that I think the underlying issue with Collingwood is it has this battler mentality that it's carried since its inception.
Well, that's what they were. They were working class.
Working class representation. It's come from the wrong side of the tracks. You had Collingwood over this side, and then was it the opposite side of Langridge, Smith Street or whatever it is. You had Fitzroy, which was deemed to be sort of upper class. You had that class battle thing going there. And I think they've carried that tag and used it to effect to always have that underdog status. And I think they perform well as an underdog, but the failure of the consistently losing grand finals is like an offshoot of that. We don't seem to build sides that are dominant sides. We build these battlers that are probably sometimes lucky to get there. I know you've got a conflicting opinion around some of this, but you look at some of these sides that failed, and you know, and one that stands out to me is the 2003 side. Despite the fact of how we finished the second half of the season, you look at that team photo today, you're thinking, how did we actually make it that far?
I think Maltese was really good at making a side that was better than the sum of its parts.
But I think that's the thing that's always been consistent at Collingwood. We just don't build this champion team. We have this team of champions that just fails to gel on that day, whether they get absorbed by the occasion or the expectation. I know we've cocked a number of things up internally over the journey, but I still think the underlying issue for me is that we want to be seen as that struggling, battling, it's that classic story like Rocky. The champion that's come from
he
nowhere
won in the end, and then he beat everyone forever after it.
Well, it's probably not a great example, but maybe in the first film, it sort of relates to that. Now, in my time...
Well, he lost in controversial circumstances in the first one.
I've seen 2 dominant Collingwood sides. Well, one that was and probably had the potential to be, being the 90 side, which we probably drank that one away, over-celebrated, and then Matthews admitted that he mismanaged things. And the 2010 side, which we dismantled 2 years later because we fear success. And you wonder what it is that's inside of the club that actually looks at these things and says, you've got an opportunity here to build something that could be quite powerful, that could be quite dominant and could win us a number of flags. It's like we shit our pants from that point and we do everything to run away from it and get back to our comfort zone, which is that underdog battler. You look at the 11 season, I mean, we dominated that. Had the highest percentage scoring, whatever it is, finishing on the ladder at the end of the season. And then as soon as finals started, we were struggling a little bit leading up to it, but
struggling about the last month.
We then sort of really limped and failed. And you thought, well, this is something that should have been spectacularly special, but we found a reason in being the Malthouse distraction that year to destabilise that, and that is something that we just do exceptionally well. We're our own worst enemy.
To reinforce what you said about being the battle of the underdogs, so I went through all our grand finals, and I found of the 27 losses, in 17 of those we lost coming from a lower position or a harder final road. So like we might have finished above a team but then lost the first final and they went above us or whatever. So like the bulk of those were lost as the underdogs. Now my issue with sort of vindicating of saying you're an underdogs, why can't you win, is in a lot of those games, a lot of those grand finals in my lifetime, so I can't speak for the ones in, 1952 and that, but in a lot of the ones in my lifetime, they're in winning positions. So 2018, they were in winning position for the bulk of the game, but if you look at the grand finals that bookend that one, so last year, we played West Coast, they got over the top of us. This year, Richmond played GWS, smashed them. The year before, Richmond played Adelaide, smashed them. Hawthorn played Interstaters in their three-peat. Sydney, Fremantle, and who was the other one?
Yeah.
West Coast. They smashed them. And our game last year was tracking like that, but there was a psychological shift within that game where the players lost their nerve. You've got a little bit of inside info about that being discussed within the club where they felt they stopped taking the game on and that sort of thing. If you go back, 2003, we just got smashed. So that's always going to happen. You're always going to face a better opponent. Sometimes it's just going to smash you.
Hello, GWS.
Yep, 02. I was close going back and forth again. That one's sort of, all right, well, we're outplayed in the end. But then you go to games like 81, we're 20 points up with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter, and then we just imploded. 77, we were 5 goals up at three-quarter time. We imploded. 79 were 5 goals up at quarter time on a really wet, muddy day. We imploded. 1970, we were 44 points up at half time. So whether the sides were battlers or not, they still got in positions to win. What they lacked is something we'll talk about soon. Sorry to cut you off. Is they lacked that ruthlessness to do what was required to actually win. Now, my problem with just sort of with the mentality of the club, and this will go to culture too, is, look, you know what? If you want to run around, not you specifically, but if the club wants to run around and go, oh, we're the underdogs and blah, blah, what a great story it is to get this far and shit like that, you're always going to lose them because you're calling being runners-up a great story. It's not. It's not good enough. And if you look at it statistically, we've won 15 flags, lost 27, drawn 2. Even if we were just mediocre in terms of winning some of those, we should still be on like about 20.
Oh, yeah. Well,
we're not even, around that.
Law of averages should say you win.
You would have stolen a couple here and there.
50-50 should be an equal, all things considered. We should be sitting on
and we can't do that.
22 flags, 22 losses.
And it gets to this point of when you get to a grand final, surely that weight of expectation that you are going to fail, not that you're going to win, but you're going to actually fail, contributes psychologically to your performance. Now, I think too many people, because I mentioned this in my article too, when I talk about this, I'm not actually talking about, hey, the players got it in the forefront of their mind, but somewhere in the back, how much does that affect them? And you look at something like tennis, which I use as an analogy often, you get guys like Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and Murray, who are all equally skilled. Why is Murray the one who always falls by the wayside there? And so obviously he doesn't have the same psychological makeup as the other 3 guys. Why Djokovic come into tennis facing 2 of the greats of all time in Nadal and Federer, and he actually took them on. He actually said, you know what, I'm going to take it right back up to you, and I think he's the best of the 3. I saw Bernard Tomic on Get Me Celebrity Out of Here about 19 years ago, and he was complaining about 3 guys controlling tennis in Federer, Nadal, and Djokovic. He goes, I would have won a Grand Slam, but these 3 guys just control tennis. It's like, why would you win a Grand Slam? You've got an excuse. You can't even get to a final. You've already got an excuse as to why you'd lose it. Psychologically, the makeup of the club doesn't have that edge to win grand finals. And
it does for prelims.
Yeah. Well, for prelims, it's, hey, we've got to get to the grand finals so we can lose it. But anyway, in terms of grand finals, the club should seriously consider just finding out or doing some sort of insight into why they don't get over the line. I think Buckley has the strategy of, and it's great. It's actually great to hear him after these losses, where he just says, "We're not good enough, so we've got to get better." And I actually like that. He doesn't do what Malthouse did in 2003, where he started potting players.
And I was going to say that a little bit earlier. And even that incident and every other grand final, it has these deflective moments that we still talk about, and it's ingrained in us as supporters now. We lost 77 because Carmen was out. 79, the Harms incident. 80, Moore went in with a hamstring.
81, that was.
Sorry?
81 Moore.
81 was it? Oh, there you go. They're all starting to blur into one.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always a reason that we fall back on. There's never any sort of excuse other than the fact that something externally impacted us on that particular day.
And this is the thing. I mean,
outside of our control, I mean.
And I always say, like, 90, I think Mullane, because he broke his thumb and he kept breaking his thumb every game he played, he set the bar up here. It was like, you cannot make an excuse. I'm going out there breaking my thumb every game I play, so you can't tell me you're too sore, too tired, or whatever. 2010.
Well, it's also just on that the 90 one. It's also that Tony Shaw had that big speech about. I'm just
a short speech, but it was an emphatic speech.
I'm just not going to lose another one of these.
He said, I've played in 2 losing grand finals, not playing in another one.
Yep, and that's great words, short and to the point. It's essentially what it is.
There's a great thing in that 91 late in the game where Craig Kelly dives on the ball and locks it in. I think it was Kelly, but Shaw just sort of went to him like that. They're like 7 goals up at that stage, but Shaw's going, well done, because that's what we got to do to win. You don't let up for a second. And I was going to go to 2010. In that documentary of the grand final, the drawn grand final, they talk to Nick Maxwell, and he says, I could see we were going to lose this, and I thought to myself, I'd rather try something and lose it rather than sit back and just let the game go. And he was the one who intercepted that. I can't remember who kicked it, but he intercepted a pass in the centre, pretty much where Crisp took a mark last year, about 7 minutes to go. And he kicked it long, and it resulted in the play that where Cloak gold and put us back in front. And he was the one guy who I thought had that attitude. That's it. I will do what's required to win. And Maxwell says, he goes, of that mark I took, 99 times out of 100, I would have punched it towards the boundary. He goes, this one time, I did something different because I was trying to create a different dynamic to help us win. And I think, and using that Crisp example again, in the grand final last year, he marked it on the wing, took a really good mark, and Crisp is a dashing player. And what did he do? He turned around, kicked it 50 metres backwards to Langdon, and they had no strategy outside of that. And West Coast just reset and hedged us in there. It was like, well, neither of you fought that one through. And it just shows the mentality, I think, of a lot of players of instead of sort of going out there to win it, they go out there to save it or to protect it. And that, I think, happened in the grand final draw. Like, they were 5 goals up, and I think they sort of went, oh, shit, what do we do now? In that second half, they just went out there and tried to protect that lead.
Yeah.
I think that happened last year too. Like I said, I don't think it's in the forefront of their mind. I think you just lose a little bit of that edge, and that's all that's needed. You lose that edge, and bang.
Yeah, and I think you have these, and there's these things you can't go out there and actually plan for, but when they happen, they can have a massive impact of it. And while we were talking there was 2 that I was thinking of, was the Yates hit on Brereton in the 89 grand final. I remember being a talk where with Dipper hosting, and he said that he said when he saw that happen and he saw Brereton get up and he spews and then shakes the trainer off, he goes, I just knew we just couldn't lose from here, because that galvanised that group to, no matter what happened from here, this guy is just giving his all, that's going to happen. And the other one is the heater smother and the 210. And I texted you at the time saying, they're moments that generally can they're just spontaneous things, but you look at that going, all the desperation into stopping what looked like a gimme goal, how do you not now, everybody on the ground, perform above your expectations? And when you see things like that, and you think, well, what is it that drives a sportsman to actually not overachieve, but go beyond?
To achieve.
And compared to when you have a great moment like the start of last year's grand final, that you then suddenly shut off. What is it that switches off inside of their heads?
Well, and I think with the thing with football is, like, when you say these things, I don't think it's like every single player switches off. You just need a few of them to just sort of gear down a little bit, and it becomes this domino.
Shift,
and this is why I always think, like, with games, there's momentum changes because of one act or one moment of stupidity where, like, the other club must just lift, and the club who was involved in the act of stupidity, they just drop their heads. So I think there's constant ebbs and flows, and when they happen at the right time, they just totally shift the way the game's going. I recall Peter Dacos, pretty sure it was Peter Dacos, said of Mark Williams in the 1981 Grand Final, he was the only guy who knew what it took to win because he came from a winning culture in Port Adelaide in the SANFL. So, for younger viewers, Port Adelaide in the SANFL, also the Magpies, they're like the bizarro Collingwood. They go in the Grand Finals and they win them. And when they're not expected to win them, they win them. And they're sitting on like 40 flags and everyone else is like miles behind them. So they're,
maybe we should support them.
Let's go. So I just think... I hope this is one reason I supported Buckley for the last 8 years, even though everything else has been going to shit around him, is I think he really gets that about Collingwood and he's trying to change it. I don't know if he can. I don't know if he's swimming upstream in shit, but...
There's a common saying about you want to change the culture of something. A change happens from the top and permeates down.
Okay, so wait.
Okay.
Now we're going to go to the culture.
There's a saying about culture starts at the top and permeates down. When it comes to Collingwood, I don't want to get into an area where we're potting people here, but Eddie's been wonderful for the club, but as a figurehead, he's been towing that old Collingwoodness with him for far too long. And I think Buckley came into this with the view that he's lived it for a number of years. Pre-Eddie, with Eddie, he's seen the failure, he's seen the reasons why. I think he wanted to be the harbinger of change and try and influence the change of the club. Now, this sort of thing, I guess you've got to be patient with. It's going to take time. We'll know in 400 years whether it was successful or not. But at the moment, though, I think part of the problem is that top part of the umbrella has been unmoved for 20 odd years now, if not longer, with the way that the club's been running. Is that it's a blocker, if you will.
Yeah.
As much as Buckley is trying to influence that and genuinely wants the club to change, and I think there are clear indications in the last couple of years that there is some movement around that particular station. Now, none of this matters anything unless it results in premierships.
Yep.
You can be... Look, culture is a representation of a number of things. It's how you run your financials. It's how you're perceived externally as a force in the community. I think all those things that we do away from winning flags, we do exceptionally well. We're a very viable club. We're very socially conscious. We have all these little pockets of everything else we're getting our fingers into to be inclusive and all the buzzwords of today. The one thing that we fall short at, and we've been doing it for 9,000 years now, is we just can't grab that ultimate prize. Do you think
we focus or promote those things too much, those other things?
Oh, definitely. I think we hide behind them.
I recall...
It's a shield.
2003, after we lost the grand final, I recall we had a get-together. It was a little bit... No, it was not like a month afterward, and Collingwood had announced a record profit. And I'm reading that and thinking,
who gives a fuck?
I don't want to fucking know this. I want to see that you're hurting. I don't want to know if you've... Great that you've gotten the profit, but I'm not sure that that needs to be released for just general public consumption. Maybe you can share that at an AGM or some shit. And that was like something I recall we were having a debate with one of the other people there, just about why you're promoting that. Why should we care? It's really about flags, I only remember that we made a profit in 2003 because we made that fucking bold statement of, hey, we made a profit. Whereas what I wanted to see was...
But it came a catch cry there for a period too. Is that they talked about the wonder of being in profit.
Yeah, it's... What
does a football club need to make a profit? You're reinvesting it back into the stock market?
Not in today's
Are you buying nice
industry.
properties down by the beach? It's irrelevant.
Actually,
no, it's not irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant.
It's relevant if you get to use that extra money in purchasing equipment, facilities, personnel above and beyond what the rest are doing to give yourself an edge. But we seem to be tight in that area. And tight is something that's been synonymous with Collingwood for a long time.
Well, the other thing too, it's like... You like that sort of flashy neighbour who brags about the stuff they own.
What, this guy here?
Yeah, that guy. Hey, look, I bought a new car. Hey, look, we've got a pool installed because we're fucking doing so well. And this is what we're going to do. And it's like, okay, great. Superficially, you're doing really well. Or materialistically, you're doing really well. What's your life like inside.
It's generating a perception of wealth. It makes people feel more comfortable doing it.
But is it a perception of success and happiness?
Well, I think it's a parallel to what we actually do. We try and give a perception of prosperity when everything that we do as a football club is measured by flags. Or it's probably an over-the-top statement. But ultimately, you're in the business of winning premierships. That's what you are as a football club. This other stuff on the side is great, and it's wonderful, and you should keep doing it, but it should be background noise.
Yeah. I sent you a story today about Hawthorn in 2008.
Yep.
So the backstory here is Hawthorn, who were like second. We're going to play Carlton, who were like last. Buddy went into that game with 98 goals, Buddy Franklin, when he played for Hawthorn, obviously, and Brendan Favola was on 92 for Carlton. Hawthorn smashed the crap out of Carlton. Buddy got his 2 goals early, got 100. Fev in the second half ran amok, kicked 7 goals, so he was on 99 goals with, I don't know, half of the last quarter gone. And the instruction from Hawthorn coach, despite being up by 10 goals, was do not let him get 100 goals. And they flooded back and they kept crowding Favola and quadruple teaming him and making sure he didn't have one moment of glory. So let's just get this straight.
And he asked for it.
Yeah. He was asking the players to give it to me. You know, just let me have it. This is a team who's sitting last on the ladder, who has no impact on the finals. You're already 10 goals up, and the attitude of their coach that permeates their side is do not let them have one fucking moment of joy. Don't let them take... And they actually mentioned it. Campbell Brown said, don't let it take any of the focus away from Buddy's 100. So they squashed Fev. And that was Fev's only chance to ever get 100. Never got close again. And as the games moved on, full forwards don't get anywhere near 100 goals anymore. Mm-hmm. And I look at that and I think, oh look, I'm really sorry, Fev, but fuck, I love that. I love the ruthlessness there of the coach to say, ground this club into the dirt. And
what's that ever done for Hawthorn's success?
They've never done anything, have they? I mean, did they win the flag that year?
No.
Oh, no, they didn't beat Geelong or anything and then back it up.
No.
And that's what this club lacks. It lacks that true ruthlessness to crush an opponent. And the thing that really annoys me is, if you look at the club, they get treated like the villain. And we see that constantly, you know. We're booed and people delight in our failures and all that sort of shit. Fine. If you're going to be booed as the villain, then fucking play the villain. Stop being the nice guy on field. You know what? I'd be mouthing off every week about the treatment of Cox and saying it's all biased against Collingwood and you're racist against Americans and all this sort of shit. Might as well just play it like pro wrestling and just say, fuck it, you're going to treat us like this, then we'll be like this, and our attitude will be us against you. But we don't have that. We have this socially...
Oh, but I reckon they internally believe it's an us against them mentality, and I don't know where our belief that us is something that's worth fighting the rest of the competition over these days, because we just don't do anything to warrant that tag.
Then why, you know, if we're going to be treated like that, then we might as well play up to that. But just in terms of our attitude, we just seem like generic football club. You know, we really don't seem like we stand for anything anymore. And, you know, we had that working class background. And it's like, well, now we've moved to the Lexus and we're on South Bank. And we're on, what do you call it? North Bank. You know, and it's like, we're so far away from our roots. What do you stand for?
I ain't winning flags.
They were never stood for that, really.
Look, I don't know. Look, and maybe this is a period of transition, but, you know, look, they're going to have, well, I don't know whether they're trying to be something to everybody. I mean, certainly it's like, you know, when you look at the coterie groups and the top end of Collingwood, the board and everything, there's a certain amount of affluence there, a hell of a lot of affluence there that, you know, is trying to appeal to that side of the market too. But you can't, it's like, you know, the way that politicians are berated. You know, you can't sit there and try and associate with the common man when you go home to your $12 million mansion in your Mercedes on the weekend. It just doesn't relate. You know you're going to get caught out. And that's, I think, what a lot of the club looks like. Well, it's getting glossed over a little bit, but I think it's losing that working class roots, which is a good thing because it needs to lose that battler tag. At the same time, there has to be a common ground, I think, or somewhere there it needs to arrive where And potentially, I guess that's what it's also trying to do with having the netball club, the golf club, the wheelchair guys, all these other distractions to try and make it a big pool of Collingwood that maybe then appeals to a broader scale, and you're not really associating any history or any perceptions with that entity. I don't know. I'm not privy to this stuff internally. I can only comment what I see from the outside, which probably does make a lot of sense. But that's where I see it trying to get to. Whether it's doing it successfully or quickly enough, it's hard to gauge.
Okay.
Because I think the problem also too, before I go on, is no matter what, your core business is the men's football side. That's surely never going to change. Unless, of course, the women win 10 flags in a row and then we're all going to jump ship, which would be a great thing.
They only have to win one.
And again, good luck. Well done to the
VFLW.
VFLW people. Just on that one though, what Eddie was there that day, and he was there pumping it up and talking it up, lots of things. But there was no periphery around there. There was no representation that I can recall seeing of the rest of Collingwood about it. It's just the figurehead of Eddie being there, and he would have been there regardless.
Yeah.
I think I don't think he went there to grandstand that moment. But you look at that and you can't help but think, yeah, I want that. I want that translated though to the seniors, and maybe the AFLW in time as well. Look, if they make it, I'd be supporting them or getting behind them. I don't think it's exclusive to that respect. Yep. But I definitely think, no matter what you look at it, 75% of the Collingwood Football Club is the men's senior side.
Yeah.
And that's the area that needs the most work. The rest of the stuff, as I said before, is background noise, but it needs to be dragged in, but sit off to the side still now. It's great, it's there. To me, it's just not important enough to be super seen. I want this middle bit, the big bit fixed first, and you fix that, and the rest of the stuff will follow.
Yeah. Oh, look, I totally agree. It's just, though, I don't know if they have that focus. I think a
lot of distraction going on at the moment too with that, which
But I think,
which it has to happen that way.
Look, you start a football club. Let's say they gave out another license and we bought it, and then you just
University.
Which would bring back.
They're undefeated after all these years.
You bring them back, and then you need to run a football club the way football clubs run, which is coaches, admin, fitness staff, and all that sort of stuff. And I wonder sometimes will these things just become matter of fact and people just do them because they're things that need to be done rather than having the focus of let's go out and get the best fucking medical staff, let's go get the best fitness guy, let's go get the best scouts, let's go get the best of everyone. So in every department we can be the best. And in doing that, we're going to contribute to creating the best side. And I think too often you just do things because they need to be done. And when they need to be done, then you're just producing a blah result. And, just touching on it really quickly, looking at our fitness staff, injury department, medical department, all that sort of stuff, you can't tell me that's the fucking best in anywhere, in any bloody league, given the returns of the last 8 years.
It's also like the way that the assistant coaches are structured. Look, Anthony Rock is a wonderful bloke, but, you don't look back at his career and think of him as a great ruckman, and yet he's ruck coach. Why wouldn't you be spending the money on getting specialists in to do it? And it comes back to that, look, I believe that we're hesitant to go over the
pay the tax.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly it. That's it. You want to be the best, buy the best, whatever it costs. If we're paying a tax for going over, then do it. You can't sit there and be tied in one respect and then make proclamations about spending $70 million on a medical centre, unless obviously that side of things is easy to do because you just fund it with signage and whatever it is that we do as organisations these days to make somebody else pay for it all. If it's not coming out of your bottom line, then you obviously just make it happen and it looks wonderful. But again, it's just another story that comes in over the top of the core problem. We're just not going back and openly addressing the issues, and like Eddie gets quite standoffish when he's questioned often about Collingwood. He's always on the defensive about this and comes out with the attack. It'd be nice, and I think, look, to be honest and fair to him, I think he's severely pulled his head in the last 12 months and not being so vocal in areas he doesn't need to be talking about, and not being that distraction. And you got to then that whatever it is that I said that Buckley's taking, it's going to take years to
Well, the
manifest.
problem with Eddie is he's got that duality happening, which is always making it difficult for him to be quiet. As you know, he'll say something. He made that joke, that inappropriate joke this year during the broadcast.
Oh, the coin toss.
Yeah, and it goes back to him being Collingwood president rather than the Fox broadcaster, Foxtel broadcaster. And there's times he's said things over the last, 10 years where I just think, okay, you're saying that probably as a commentator, shut the fuck up, because you're also speaking as the Collingwood president. I recall going back to, I think, before Hardwick was appointed coach of Richmond. I think it was quite a while ago, even longer ago than that, but I can't remember who the last coach was, Wallace or someone, and he was saying during the game, oh, why not get Tommy Hafey in, let him coach the rest of the season? It's like, just shut the fuck up. It's not your club. Shut up. I know you're just being a commentator and you're just speculating and all that. Shut up. Because right now you're also talking as an admin, because what they're going to say is, why is the Collingwood president telling us, not going to say why is the Foxtel commentator, they're going to say, why is the Collingwood president telling us how to run our club? And he's done things like that where I just think, you got to realise, you might be saying it as one head, but people are always looking at the other one because they're going to come pot you as a president. And I think when he does that, it just sort of creates this distraction and this dislike for the club, which is totally unwarranted. It's like, I dislike Hawthorn because they're successful. I don't know who the fuck their president is. And that's why I'd rather be disliked because they're successful, not because we're a tall poppy.
Isn't it? Dickinson?
I don't fucking know.
I know Kennett was there
because
he was outspoken, and that's what history remembers.
And they got rid. They got rid of him. They had like fixed terms that.
That's a good idea.
We're going to go to that anyway. Any last thoughts on?
No, because I think we're going to get to it.